Test, test, test. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. You're welcome. All right, let's see.
Hey, Carlos, we have champagne.
What time is it now?
It's 10:02. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Good morning, Rich.
People in the office can hear me, right? All right.
There it goes.
I'm not waving to you. I'm waving. We have a camera that's supposedly going to follow me.
Wait twice after you hold your hand.
Uh-huh.
And that's how you know it's gonna follow.
One.
There you go.
All right. Huh. Isn't that cool? You got this spooky camera that once you wave at it, it's I winked at this one actually. It's following me. Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. Actually, we have far more people attending remotely, I would say, the weather conditions. And I dragged Tony in the office and he had to go through these terrible conditions to come in here today, but he's happy to get out of the office. Right, Tony?
Yes.
Well, you work out of the house quite often, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
2 weeks out of the month right now.
So well, you may have heard some of the discussions we were just having about what's taking place with the banks. Well, I'm not going to necessarily address what my thoughts are on that, but there's a couple things that I did want to talk about today just briefly. If we remember going back to 2008, and some of you probably weren't in the industry at that time, there's something called the Home Equity Sales Contract Act, and it has to do with foreclosures. And keep this in mind because we're starting to see a few more foreclosures currently, and this could impact you in regards to how you might submit an offer on a home that has a notice of default filed against it. So keep in mind, if you do submit an offer and it's for an investor, and many of us have worked with investors, and the offer you're placing is on a home that is owner occupied, there's a notice of default recorded against it. And once again, you're representing an investor, you must use a different purchase contract. And that's called the notice of default purchase contract. And it's critical that you use a proper purchase contract because without doing that, theoretically, the seller who is in financial distress could sue to unwind that transaction. So just think, if you don't use the notice of default purchase agreement, that investor buys a property, rehabs it, resells it, and then the person who ultimately was one who lost the home or who owned the home when it was in default that realizes that they were harmed or think they were harmed, they can sue to unwind those transactions.
Is that a 2 year? 2 year?
Is there a 2-year statute of limitation? I'm not sure about the statute of limitations. Now, it may be 2 years, but who knows? It could be greater, as a matter of fact. And we've had one example in the past, fortunately not through our office, in which we've witnessed something like that occur. Now, the notice of default purchase agreement, and this is just to keep you apprised of this, as a matter of fact, there's a 5-day right of rescission associated with that agreement. And that's one of the benefits afforded to the seller of the property, is they can cancel the contract without any repercussions or any loss or anything else. So keep that in mind. And if a transaction fails, if they decide to rescind the contract within those first 5 days, there's nothing you can do about it. But remember, if you're representing an investor, the property has a notice of default recorded against it, and it's owner occupied, you must use the notice of default purchase agreement. Any questions about that? We'll probably get into that more if we see more and more foreclosures. And then another thing that's new this year is Assembly Bill 2170. And this is something that we're seeing take place right now. And 2170 prescribes that if the property itself, and let me look at my notes as a matter of fact, if it's a residential property and their property was acquired through foreclosure by an institution that is foreclosed on more than 175 properties during their last reporting fiscal year, then there are certain requirements that must be met when making an offer. So for example, during the first initial 30 days of that property being offered, it can only be offered to somebody who meets certain criteria. An owner occupant, an investor is precluded during the first 30 days from submitting or acquiring a property in which a bank foreclosed and is now placing the property back on the market for sale. And should you be representing a buyer who intends to occupy the property, remember during the first 30 days, you have to submit an affidavit, and the affidavit is subject to perjury and or imprisonment if you lie. So you must state, I'm going to occupy the property. You must occupy the property within the initial 60 days after the close of escrow. There are some other requirements also. So they have to occupy the residence within 60 days of the close of the escrow. They must maintain their occupancy for at least 1 year. And they cannot be any of the following: the mortgagor or trustee, child, spouse, or parent of the person who is in default or lost the property, the grantor of a living trust. And there are some other aspects that must be met, but the affidavit is not something that is readily available for us. So if you have an instance in which the property, and ideally the agent who is listing the property understands that the seller may be subject to meeting these criteria, if you do have a buyer for whom you wish to submit an offer and that property is going to be owner occupied, remember during the first initial 30 days, you can't submit an offer or it's going to just be rejected if it's not someone who's going to occupy the property. We must accompany the offer with an affidavit stating that they're going to meet these certain criteria. So keep that in mind. Contact me if you have any questions about that or if you have a need for something like that. And realistically, the agent who's listing the property should be mentioning that information on the MLS, that this is a requirement. And I'd like to think that the lender is going to be sophisticated enough to notify the listing agents that an affidavit must accompany the offer. Plus, during that initial 30 days, if it's an offer you submit, the lender is required to respond to that offer. Now, what takes place if they don't get sufficient offers or an offer they believe is adequate during the first 30 days? They probably can continue to offer the property for sale, but it's going to take a lot of investors out of the game when during that initial 30 days when their property is offered for sale by a bank. And going back to 2008 through 2012, we saw a lot of bank-owned properties coming on the marketplace at that point in time. So it's going to be more relegated to individuals who are going to occupy the property, and there's some other entities that may qualify. And one, this is very interesting, UC Regents. So we know that, for example, UCI has housing that's afforded to professors that I think have tenure at UCI, for example, and that's probably true of every single UC campus. They qualify for this, so they can buy the property at below market prices, or they can actually compete during that initial 30 days. I just find that very interesting. Not that that's going to affect us in any specific way, but we're going to give them some benefit as opposed to somebody else, right? You're going to benefit the government in some way. So today's discussion is on RPR, Real Property Resource, and there's some great things about this. I'm not going to go into the details about that, but what it does afford you, for example, you can give information regarding detailed property and market information, school information. Maybe we don't know where to find that. Foreclosures, average income, historic data, flood maps, demographic information, and thematic and heat maps. So today with us today is Tony Bried from Orange County Realtors. Let's welcome Tony.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's doing okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Anthony. I work at Orange County Realtors, been there now for a little over 20 years, started off in the MLS department. And what I'm involved with is our outreach program. Our outreach program is designed to give you training on all your tools and products, from MLS to zipForms to third-party member benefits like today's topic, RPR. Now, RPR stands for Realtor Property Resource, and what this allows us to do is look at tax data information on listed and unlisted properties in the United States. More than 66 million properties we have access to as real estate agents, professionals. This is a little bit different than Realist, only because Realist only deals with the state of California, but you can look at tax data information, unlisted and unlisted properties in the state of California using Realist. Now, why would I ever want to use RPR? Well, I love the tool and it gives us a lot of details, but they've actually modernized it even more. Last year, they went through a major update. This year, they're doing some extra updates, and hopefully I get to show you what those are today. Okay, so let's see here. Do we have any questions? I see here, oh, I just see a good morning. Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to share my screen. And the way I access RPR is simply being logged into the MLS system. And from here, what I can do is I can move my mouse over to the links tab.
Can you minimize the camera?
Sure.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down on my third-party member benefits, and I'm going to find the one that says Realtor Property Resource RPR. When I click on that choice, RPR hopefully will open up. And if you've registered yourself as a user, simply input your email address, put in your password. If you're new to RPR, simply come down below to where it says create new account. Put in your last name, and you can put in your NRDS number. Now, your NRDS number is issued to you by the association at the time that you join. So if you're an Orange County member, that number should begin with 2055 and followed up with 5 other numbers. Whoops. So here you'll put in your legal last name, what's on your DRE license. Here I'm now going to put in my NRDS number. Now when I click next, it's going to find me and say, okay, create a password and continue on. Okay. Now, once I create that password, very quickly, just to show you what the setup screen looks like, or the settings. Here I can look at listing data information for residential, listings in the past 30 days, recently closed in the past 90. I can look at commercial, what's for sale, as well as what's recently closed. I can even pick out market areas or cities that I'm marketing in. Just simply type in the name of the city, what state, and now I can keep track of information in that area, in that region. Now, real quickly, here with the new updates, we see here that I am looking at the Huntington Beach area. And what I love about this is that I get to see an outline of the entire city of Huntington Beach. And I currently see, because CRMLS does data share with RPR, I get to see all the new listings and of course, any scheduled open houses. Now, what I like about this is that I can just simply click on a listing, look at some of its details, list price currently active, that it's a mobile home, bedroom, bathroom, square footage. I even get to see homeowner information. So not only is this property listed in the MLS, but I get to see the homeowner data. When I click on view the details about this property, I get to see the list price versus its assessed valued market. I can see its estimated realtor or assessed value market range. Okay, how much it's changed in a month. I get to see all the listing photos of the property. But more importantly, I get to see some extra information as well. I can create a CMA, I can see the list price, I can refine the value, which by the way, these have all been updated. Instead of just being words or tabs, they've actually made little windows. Here I get to see the property's description. But more importantly, I also get to see the listing agent data and private remarks that would be there. So what's nice about this, I can reach out to the agent. I see their name, their phone number, their email address or website. I get to see what office they're associated with. I get to see some of the listing details, interior features, what's recorded on title. What I also love about RPR is that it pre-vets the schools nearby. So based on the address, it will dictate what schools the client is now going to. Again, homeowner information, location, sales history, public recording data. So when it changed title, we can go all the way back to its inception. And of course, some nice other fun charts and graphs. Now, this is just looking at a particular listing. But if I go back, what I can also do is switch to looking for public records in a particular area. And what I can now do is run a map search and maybe zoom in. And now using one of my other drawing tools, let's see here. There it goes. Using one of my other drawing tools, I can instead search that area. And now I can find not listed properties, but I want public records. And now here are a bunch of unlisted properties. And again, I can look at those full details. Now, what I really like about this is that one of the updates that they've recently added is this market trends. Now, the market trends used to be called charts. Now, if you ever were in RPR prior, the charts were very analytical, looked really boring to us, right? Anybody here super analytical? Exactly, no one, excellent. So what I like about this is that this year, they've actually updated this to be something a lot more user-friendly and a lot more easier to read. So we see right here, some key data is about the market. So in that area that I've outlined, there's 1.2 months worth of supply of inventory. The listing that sold a little bit above asking price. It took them 17 days on the market to get about $695,000 as the median sales price. So we immediately get to see what type of market we're dealing with, which is a great discussion to have with any client, whether they're a buyer or a potential seller. Okay. You also get to see a quick average of active listings, like the median sales price of $699. Number of properties in my area are 25. Days on market for that area is 37 days. Price per square foot, total sales volume, and of course, living area square footage per property. We also get to see the sold information, which is really nice. Here we get to see the sold public records. Now, sold public records versus the sold listings. Listings pulled from the MLS. Properties sold outside of the MLS. For sale by owners, maybe registered properties, things like that that aren't being marketed. So we immediately get to see that homes that aren't being marketed on the MLS are selling $20,000 less than properties being sold in the MLS. It's taking them, oh, what is it? There's only 16 properties that sold versus the 12 properties that sold. And of course, we've got at least $2 million more of properties being sold outside of the MLS versus what's in the MLS. So we need to have some proper discussions with clients. Don't we want to see more properties in the MLS? Yes. Aren't homeowners wanting more money than what they're selling? Sure. What's their major excuse? I think I can do it better than you. I know that I just want to sell it. Here, just write it on a napkin for me. Yes, sir.
Hey, Tony, so on the MLS sold, it says for the month of February, but on the public record, it says January.
Where do you see that? On here?
Yeah, under sold listings, it says February 2023, and then scroll down, sold public records, January 2023.
That's a good question. I don't know why they're back a month from that. I'll have to talk to RPR.
Yeah, so the numbers would be different.
The numbers would be different. Yeah. So
I would think it's going to take at least 2 weeks for the public records that you can be up to
Updated.
date, minimum 2 weeks.
even though we are near what, mid-March, we should see that February number, at least for the public record standpoint, because RPR does update Orange County at least every 2 weeks of its information. So I'll have to talk to them today about that. That's a good, thanks, Carlos. Here we've got some other charts and graphs that I think are a lot easier to read than what they were before. Median estimated property values, which is good to see if things are going up or down. And by the way, we can look at 3-year differences, 1 year, 2 year. For this property, the zip code, county, and of course the state, the comp statistics, and everything else that looks like it's been modernized. So I like this just for that. Now, if there was a property, as an example here, that maybe I'm going to.
Can you go back to that prior screen, Carlos's question?
Sure.
Because one is active listings and one was closed, right?
Yep. So these are active from the
Let's
MLS
say
that
they're
they
sold
pulled
listings
and sold.
sold listings from the MLS.
Yeah.
And if you click on sold public records, the little I circled, maybe
Mhm.
that tells us.
This graphic summarizes the key stats for properties that are sold each month. RPR uses a combination of dates and deed and assessment records to determine the qualifying sales transactions each month.
Applicable.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And it looks like they're updated monthly, so maybe we won't see this get updated until end of March. Unfortunately, I don't know. It should be sooner, but I'll find out those dates for you guys.
It probably doesn't change that dramatically anyways.
I hope not.
Yeah.
If it did, then we definitely need to start having conversations. You know, our agents, you know, is there an influx of agents registering properties, double ending them, or selling them within their own company that aren't being recorded on the MLS to pull in those numbers to help other people, you know, assess that.
And
sort
will
of
it
thing.
show us which properties were not on the MLS?
No,
Yet
it won't.
post?
No, it won't. Now, this will show properties that did sell when I create a CMA. So I will be able to pull up properties that sold, quote unquote, by public records.
Does it designate those sold
Yes,
outside of the MLS?
yes,
Yep.
it'll say sold public records, whereas the other one will just flat out say sold and have an MLS number, which is good. Let's see here. We can't update the property information here, which can affect the AVM or the RVM of the property. If I wanted to, I see the school information. So here we see the 3 vetted schools already. So if you're questioning what property goes to what schools the property goes to, look at RPR. Because again, they're pulling this from the school records or the unified school district information for this home. So now hopefully agents won't leave those schools blank. Okay. If I wanted to, I can refine the value. Refining the value is quite fun. When we're sitting down with a potential seller, we want to take into account home improvements that they've made. How many of you all have been into a property where a client has said they updated their kitchen, but at a quick glance, it doesn't look new, right? Anybody? We've all seen that, right? So maybe in this case, sitting down with them, they tell me they did a major kitchen remodel. And they did it back in, I don't know, 2010, around maybe April of 2010. And at the time they spent, what's a good kitchen remodel? Anybody?
50,000.
50,000. Excellent. Now you would think, and most sellers go, well, I put 50,000 in the house, I should get an extra $50,000 above what that refi or that estimated value is, right? Well, now when we add that improvement, remember, wear, tear, age, it only adds $17,000 in extra equity. So yes, 12 years ago or 13 years ago, you spent $50,000 on the high-end products, but you've used it, materials have changed, energy efficiency has changed. It really only adds $17,000 in value today. So not as much as what you thought. Now we can also play devil's advocate. We've all been in those properties that need some work, right? And of course, sellers don't see that necessarily. Is it that big of a deal? Well, it can be, because homeowners or buyers today want things that are move-in ready. So what would be a thing that a client wants to improve about a property? Anybody?
Restrooms.
Bathrooms, right? So here we can say bathroom remodel, kitchen, or actually master, main. And then, oh, I don't know, what's my vendors. I'm going to use my vendors to update the bathroom. I know what they are going to usually charge. Maybe they charge about $15,000.
Let's think about it.
Now, when I add that improvement, it takes away that value. So we can now be a little bit of the devil's advocate to take into account something the seller has done, but then we talk to the seller and say, these are the things that it would cost any buyer or most buyers to do to get this home up to snuff, because they're not going to want to pay top dollar if they've got to fix things. So here we can add these values in or take away the value. Okay. We also have the little short, quick sliding scale. What type of market are we in? Maybe it's a slightly slow market. Things are a little bit lower nowadays by 10 grand easily. Oh, and by the way, these devalues or these depreciations are all based around the region and the cost of materials in that region. So my depreciation would be different, say, in the state of Colorado or Texas versus California. So even though our money is the same, the depreciation value of those products and those quality of those products are a little bit different. So it's kind of nice for that. Now, at this point, after I refine the value, I can create reports. And hopefully the reports are updated this time, because they are updating those reports. And now maybe we want to make a seller's report. Now I can tell right off the gate, or right out of the gate, they have updated the front page of the report. Now, by the way, the seller's report is the CMA for a seller. A property report is a CMA for a potential buyer. Now, what's in these reports? Down below are all the various different pages that are automatically assumed we want to use. All we need to do, if we don't want to use a particular report, deselect that report. If you're not sure what that report would look like, simply click on the eye icon or move your mouse over top of it, and you can see what that report will look like, which is really nice.
What's the AARP?
Oh, AARP, where do we
Probably
see that?
applicable to me right now.
So the AARP,
It was about midway down.
let's see here. There it is.
Just curious.
The AARP basically is the index, and that used to be.
So it's not ARP. It's not.
Yeah, no, it is ARP. It is ARP. It's the livability for older, yeah, for older clientele. So let's go back. Come on.
I'm interested.
Yeah. Come on. I'm just trying to pull up that property. Well, when all else fails, go back home. Gosh darn it. You would think.
That's okay. I was just.
No. It's there. I like it. It's funny because what it does is it gives you a livability score for people 55 and older. It used to be actually in this line of summary. Maybe I passed it. Okay. So maybe not.
Consider discrimination though, because you don't have a livability for people under that?
Well, it just says people 55 years and older, and what it does is it breaks down like several categories, like environment, public transportation accessibility, cost of living, right? So it rates that property, for somebody who may be looking for those types of things. And maybe they did remove it, or it looks like they did remove it from the property summary report. But what I liked about this is that, and here what we'll just do is just create the report. And hopefully it'll be there. It'll jot all those down. So some things will be better than others, like, oh, maybe public transportation isn't really good. So a senior who may be looking for that, it's going to rate really low, right? Because Lord knows California can do with improving on things like that.
Well, the population is just aging here.
The population is aging. Not just that, but I mean, California isn't really overly big on public transportation efficiency. Like if you ever get a chance, go to Washington, DC. Now, when I lived there, rush hour public transportation was awesome. And why everybody takes it is because like buses are by every 15 minutes. So you could wait there 15 minutes later, you're on a bus and you're going off. Or the trains are every 5 minutes. So they've got that going. Whereas here, rush hour, you're lucky to see a bus within what, a half hour to an hour. And if you're really tired, your life depends on that, then yeah, we've got to now get up at 4 in the morning to get to our bus stop, the whole 9 yards.
Is that something we could put in the description, Tony, if we're doing like a CMA, the AARP score?
I would just be really careful on how you word that, because you don't want to, there it is, there's your AARP livability. So this home is a 55% out of 100 livability score for a senior.
So if it's high, included. If it's low, don't.
Yeah. I mean, here you got housing affordability at 47%. The neighborhood is at 69. The environment, so clean air and water, is at 40. That kind of worries me. And then here, health prevention. Well, geez, if the environment's bad, no wonder they got hospitals and facilities close by, is because everybody's still getting sick from the environment. We can have a lot of fun with that all day long. But even people under the age of 55 may want to know what type of environment they're moving into. So you could probably say AARP livability score is at 55%, according to RPR. I'm sure that would be fine.
That's permitted, but from CRLS.
I would clear it with your broker.
It's probably a third-party report.
It's a third-party report.
They would allow this to pop up.
Well, this is an MLS, so their rules are vastly different because you're giving this report to an individual. You're not necessarily sharing it to the public.
Got it.
Which is why you can get away with like listing photos and stuff like that, because again, you're talking about one-on-one relationship versus in mass, which is good. So here you've got your report. It's super highly detailed. My understanding is that they will eventually update these to make them look even better and more modern. So it looks like they haven't done it just yet. Other than that, what other reports do we have here? We have a school report. So we can do a school report on a property. And if you've not seen the school reports, I like this. Here we've got where the school is located and its school boundaries itself. So if the home falls in the school boundary, that's why it's going to the school. Okay. What I also like about this,
That's really nice.
it's really, really nice. Now, what I like also about this, and I'm going to zoom in here. On page 2, we get to see the map, the satellite. We get to see the school information, the name, the level, what grades they cater to, the address, and of course the phone number. This is great for any client. Here's what they really care about. It's rating, A-, 668 students are enrolled. Student to teacher ratio is 26:1. Kids on free lunches, 36% of the student body. But here's something more important. Math and reading proficiency. So here, 84% of kindergartners through fifth graders can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. 82% of those kindergartners through fifth graders can actually read and write. Not too bad. But in my day, what deemed an A- was 90 on up. Anything in the 80s was usually a B. Then you had C's at 70s, and then D's were 65 to 70, and then anything below 60 was an F.
So we've modified that?
We've modified that just a little bit here.
And everybody gets a trophy.
Everybody gets a trophy. Now, I've seen worse schools. I've seen worse percentages, like in the 60s, and still be an A- school. So
What's the column to the right?
the column to the right is the school district. So this school is an A- versus the school district. And I love this, for it to be B+ for the entire school district. 57% of kindergartners through fifth graders can actually add, subtract, multiply, and divide. 63% of students in the school district can read and write. So we got some problems here.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you have kids that are still in school, get involved in their, in your school. Now, I like this one. Gifted students are 31%, so they're in the advanced placement programs, though I've heard California is changing that. So be careful. And then, of course, what I also like about this, I can see the average teacher salary of $104,000 per year. So teachers say that they don't earn enough money, they don't have enough money, this, that, and the other. Yet we have lenders that might have special lending programs out there for teachers, just like police officers and veterans and all this stuff. Well, geez, $104,000. Do you think that they might be able to afford an $800,000 property? Maybe. So we at least get to see that. By the way, that's all by page 2. Page 3, other nearby schools within that 5-mile area. Their ratings, public, private. Okay. More importantly, maybe they don't like that particular home and they want to know other homes within the area that would possibly go to this school. Here, we're now given a list of all the active listings in the MLS that the client might be interested in.
That's cool.
That's really cool. Any questions on this? Any questions in Cyberland? No, have I stumped everybody? Has everybody already done all this?
Well, I certainly haven't.
I think the reports are really fun. I think they're highly detailed. They just seem to get better and better as time goes on. You can even, if you wanted to, have a valuation workbook created. So if you have a client that's an investor and wants to see if this is a good investment opportunity, you can actually create an evaluation workbook for them about their particular asset. And of course, you have a flyer. The flyer looks really neat. It's super simple, but it's now one of the 4th or 5th tools that you have access to from the MLS to make flyers. So maybe Carlos is sick. He can't help you make a flyer. Maybe you're not good with PowerPoint, Canva, Keynote, any of that. Try out RPR. Yes, sir.
So there's just a dramatic array of information and tools to use in RPR. Where do you think the most valuable or most used aspects of RPR?
The
may
most valued is creating the CMA. So you get that seller report going. Okay. That's really the most used. Other than that, I can pull up properties to make mailing label lists. So maybe you're marketing a particular area and let's go with a map search. And here what I can do is I can draw out my area for my neighborhood. And I don't want leases, I want properties that aren't listed. Now from here, what I can do is come over to where it says mailing labels. Now, RPR allows you to create up to 2,000 mailing labels each and every month at no cost to you. Very simple. Here we have the Avery mailing label list. We see what the mailing label looks like. Now, what's neat about this is that for those of you looking for absentee owners, maybe you look for the tax bill. So you make the mailing label towards their tax bill. And here you can make it to the owner's name, owner or current resident, or you can customize the label. Maybe, you know what, 594 people is just too many. I just want to market to those people who are absentee owners. So we've now dropped from 594 people down to 96 people in that area that are absentee owners. Here, at this point, I can go to print. I now download that PDF document, which I can now put that Avery mailing label in my printer and print off this list, or even better yet, I download it, save it, and then use it again next month. I don't have to recreate this over and over again. Another nice aspect of this, anybody here have a CRM? Contact retention management system?
Yes, we do.
Instead of making the label, I can export this to a CSV file, which is an Excel spreadsheet file. Now I can export these 96 people into my CRM and apply my marketing action plan to those 96 absentee owners.
Does it also pull email addresses?
It does not pull email or phone numbers, but I now armed with this list, I can now reach out to my title rep and say, here's the list of people I need to get phone numbers and email addresses for. Can you hook me up? It's way better than just saying, give me those 594 people and now I have to disseminate it. I've now narrowed that down and made my time a little bit more efficient. Another aspect of this tool that I also find very useful is in our search. And let me see here if I can. In my search, I can also apply other filters. So I can look for public record or lease information. I can narrow things by price, living area, square footage, but better yet, we were talking about foreclosures or potential foreclosures.
Yes.
Here I can mark, I want to see properties that are in pre-foreclosure, either short sale, auction, or bank owned, or I can exclude them. I can even run searches for open houses. And even better yet, I can still pull absentee information or show me homeowners that have owned their homes for 10 to 15 years or 15 to 20 or 20 or more years, which is great for marketing. Because obviously if somebody has owned their home for say 15 or more years, they probably have what? More equity possibly. Maybe they need to downsize. Maybe I reach out to them, especially if they're, you know, in the short sale process or notice of default. Maybe now we come up with strategies to either help that person refinance to stay in their home, or maybe they do need to sell and I'll help them with the sale. So it gives us different avenues to market to. Does that help?
It does.
And of course, we were talking about nationwide data. Here I can run a search on any region. So what's a popular area that people seem to be wanting to move to right now? Anyone?
Texas,
Texas, where about in Texas?
Austin.
Austin, excellent. So here I can type in Austin, Texas. And now I get to see an entire outline of Austin, Texas. Now, because I'm looking at public records, let's just say, oh, I don't know, let's look for properties that are just for sale that are currently active in Austin. And here are all the active homes that are currently for sale. Now, just like with our MLS, where we get to see And that's amazing to me. 1.7 million there in Austin. Just a mere 5-6 years ago, this home was probably worth only 5 or 6. So they've really gained a lot of equity. But here, I get to see all those listing photos. But again, can I practice in that state? No, I've got a client who's wanting to move. Here, I'm going to give Cindy Goldrick a call at her mobile phone number and tell her, either her or Mary Anna, and say, hey, I have a client that's looking at this house. They're living in California. I'd like to refer this client to you. Do you pay a referral fee? Huh?
How do we get on that list?
Just put a listing in the MLS.
It's that simple.
It's that simple. As a matter of fact, you're a realtor, right, Carlo? So you can access this now and access this plethora of potential referral agents to now refer clients. And maybe in return, if Cindy or Mariana have a client moving to California, they can now refer their client to you because we've established a relationship. So it now allows us to widen our wings a little bit. We're customer service still oriented. We've already talked to the agents. We'll know that they'll pick up, and that hopefully based on our phone conversation and our correspondence, these are trustworthy people. How many of you have ever looked at property on Zillow before in another state and called agents? Has anybody? I have. I've called 7 agents on one property, not one picked up. I just happened to find who the listing agent was using RPR, reached out to them, they picked up, and we ended up going out with that agent to buy that investment property. So it works. I'm just still amazed how many people don't pick up their phones. Right? Everybody here picks up their phone?
Of course.
And you say of course, but we know. We know.
That's because your number pops up as spam.
Thanks. Now, another nice tool that this also is merged with is zipForms. So here, what we can do, even from a listing perspective, is start a listing transaction on this property in our zipForms account. All we got to do is just simply click on this icon. Now we could start a transaction, apply our templates, and now after a listing appointment, make the transaction in less than 30 seconds, which is good.
So it already knows to open up our zipForm accounts.
Because I've merged it, yeah.
Is it?
Because we only have one NRDS number.
Mhm.
So California's
That's what identifies
tool,
it.
that's how you're identified.
Got it.
So here I start a new listing and now go to my zipForms. And then as I continue on, we're going to be now defaulted into the summary screen of the transaction that was just created. And skip. And there's the property data all right there,
Wow.
ready for me to add contracts.
So for anyone that's taking a listing for a property that was listed previously, it's going to import all that information. So you don't have to type it in.
Don't have to type it in. I'll fill out the nuances like listing contract date, list date,
Yeah.
list price, all that stuff. But now my time is cut in half.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I like it.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Are there any questions?
Can you go back to the evaluate tool?
Sure. The refine value tool?
It says analyze investment potential.
Oh, that one.
That's it. Yes, thank you.
So this is a great tool for the investor side. So here we can evaluate it for either short-term or long-term holding. Let's see here.
Oh, this is for a fee.
No.
Yeah.
There we go. So here what we can do is there we go. Let's pick our file. This shouldn't be for a fee. So here I can indicate if it's for a long-term hold or a flip. All I have to do is now put in my numbers: square footage, purchase price, gross revenue, reserves, annual growth expectation. My first year begins, right? So I can put all that information in. Maybe I expect a 5% growth. And my purchase price is only going to be, oh, I don't know, 2 million. And sure, let's
The
go.
revenue was up about.
Oh.
Year one effective gross revenue.
Let's go with what is it? 24,000.
Sure.
And the operating expenses hopefully won't be greater than 10. Okay. So now when I hit submit, I now actually get to see this nice little fun chart for my investor. Unlevered versus levered, cash flow, IRR, equity multiple, your average cap. Here, your first through, what is it, 10-year, 11-year holding of the product. So we can now see if this is going to be a worthwhile investment for the investor.
That's great. It simplifies the whole process right? When you're
Simplifies it.
working with an investor and they're looking at a property.
Exactly. You got your property tax percentage, the amounts, all this other fun stuff that, again, now you've expanded yourself to help your investors. And if you yourself are an investor, this is a really good tool too.
That's right.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Anything in the chat box?
Anything in the chat box? Let's see. Nope, nothing in
No?
chat.
Okay.
Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everybody for allowing
Thank
me
you,
to talk.
Tony. Appreciate it.
There you go.
Does anyone have any questions in general about the
Sorry.
discussion earlier today?
There we go.
Tony,
Let's
you
see.
got to give it up, right? It's following Tony, likes Tony. Too much.
There we go. I'll just stand behind it.
Okay. Well, Tony, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming, everybody, and it's great to see you. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.